The Gospel of St. John, chapter 6, verses 1 to 15. Jesus went across the Sea of Galilee of Tiberias. A large crowd followed him, because they saw the signs he was performing on the sick. Jesus went up on the mountain, and there he sat down with his disciples. The Jewish feast of Passover was near. When Jesus raised his eyes and saw that a large crowd was coming to him, he said to Philip, "Where can we buy enough food for them to eat?" Jesus said this to test Philip, because he himself knew what he was going to do. Philip answered him, 200 days' wages worth of food would not be enough for each of them to have a little. One of his disciples, Andrew, the brother of Simon Peter, said to him, "There is a boy here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what good are these for so many?" Jesus said, "Have the people recline." Now there was a great deal of grass in that place, so the men reclined, about 5,000 in number. Then Jesus took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed them to those who were reclining, and also as much of the fish as they wanted. When they had their fill, he said to his disciples, "Gather the fragments left over, so that nothing will be wasted." So they collected them and filled 12 wicker baskets with fragments from the 5 barley loaves that had been more than they could eat. When the people saw the sign he had done, they said, "This is truly the prophet, the one who is to come into the world." Since Jesus knew that they were going to come and carry him off to make him king, he withdrew again to the mountain alone. First of all, generally speaking, this gospel is a sign or foresign of the Holy Eucharist and the Mass. Jesus is a very good teacher, and he always spoke where people could understand or where people were at that time. That's why he often used parables when he preached. And here he saw people, they were seeking healing, they were seeking food, or they were seeking graces, which they knew that Jesus could give. And Jesus was sensitive to their feelings. So that's why we could think of Jesus as a good teacher. He starts off where people are, and from there he moves on to where he would like them to be, to grow as a person and as a child of God. Then also we see in this gospel that God works through people. He gives his graces to people through people. So Philip comes in, and then another disciple, Andrew. Finally, it ends up with a little boy who has a few fish and a few loaves of bread. And Jesus gives thanks, and he prayed. And when we give thanks and are prayerful, our blessings increase. In the other gospel of, say, Mark, for example, Jesus gives the bread and the fish back to the disciples to distribute. Here in John's gospel, that does not come in, but in the other gospel, Jesus does not distribute personally, but he gives to his disciples to distribute. Again, God's graces, God's blessings to people, through people. And that applies to all of us. We are the hands of God, you might say. So the graces that we receive from God, we ought to share with others. Finally, in the Gospel, we see that Jesus says that nothing should be left over and thrown away. Gather up the fragments left over, he says, so that nothing will be wasted. And how this applies so much to our present day, where we waste an awful lot, and there are people starving. If only we could share the things that we have left over, the fragments, you might say, that are left over. So these are some of the little points that we can gather from lessons that we can gather from this gospel, and that it is a sign of the Holy Eucharist, the Mass, that Jesus sees people and takes people from where they are and leads them on to greater heights, greater graces, that God gives his love and his graces to people, through people. Finally, waste not, and you will want not. God bless you, and until next time, goodbye.